Today I'm bringing you a Titan build because I haven't done one of those in a little while and I felt like Titans were neglected. But fortunately, Titan meta is pretty well defined right now. It's all about Storm's Keep, Bolt Charge, Barricades, and with that we want to also take advantage of strengthening our Thundercrash super because it's already a very good super, it does great damage, and we have some good artifact support for it. So we're going to take Cuirass of the Falling Star. That'll give us a extra 55% damage to that super. We'll stack that up with artifact perks like Limit Break, which give us 30% more super damage. And we also have some other great ones like Elemental Supercharger that let us get our super even faster. With all that, we have a lot of great perks to make Bolt Charge even stronger. You can see here we're working through a Legend Campaign mission that is 15 power level under. And we're having very few problems. Every time one of those Bolt Charge discharges goes off, we get healed, so we just need to keep churning those out. I'm intentionally mostly just using primary through this just to demonstrate its strength and just that you don't really need special weapons or heavy weapons to clear a lot of stuff, and that can be really helpful, but you can definitely use it to do things faster, so take advantage of it. We got our super pretty quickly here, even though we're not leaning into the Cuirass perk that gives us our super faster from melee kills, but we still get it really fast just because of all the damage we're dealing. We're just working through these enemies, and then we're going to just kind of move around a bit and get some of these larger enemies here like the Minotaur and Cyclops enemies. We got this one, and we're going to loop around and Thundercrash this boss. And if this build sounds good to you, let's get into it. I'm Engineer. As always, I like to do a review of the build. If you're at all familiar with the current meta, you may already know this build, but the goal here is to Thundercrash bosses, provide constant Bolt Charge for you and your teammates for better weapon DPS, and that's really all there is to it. The use for this is mainly boss encounters, but it's great in all content. There's no real harm to it. It's going to be great in GMs, it's going to be great in raid encounters, dungeon encounters, all of it. It's good at all power levels. It's extremely effective this episode, just thanks to all the massive artifact support. On the pro side, very high damage super with little setup. You get high uptime and Bolt Charge for you and your team. You have very versatile weapon selection. I'm mainly focused on arc weapons during the gameplay here, but you can really use anything and it will work just fine. You lose a little bit of synergy on your fragments, but that's really it. On the con side, your barricade regen is your limiting factor if you don't have a void weapon, because void weapons and the artifact can help regen that for you. Thundercrash does take you out of the fight for a little bit longer than most supers because you have to fly to the boss and hit them. I've been doing Ghost of the Deep this week, and trying to hit Samuma with Thundercrash is a pain and can take a little while, especially because you want to be back with your well and your friends. And then the last thing is there is limited healing in this build. We're getting all of our healing from orbs and from one of our artifact perks that heals us whenever Bolt Charge goes off. So that's kind of a limiting factor. The last thing I want to mention, it's not listed here, is this is very reliant on artifact perks. In about a month and a half, when we get a new artifact, this will work a lot differently. I think it'll still be good, but it's not going to be insanely good. So just keep that in mind. Let's start off with our exotic. It's Cuirass of the Falling Star. This requires Beyond Light. You can get it from Rahul's Novel Decryption after you reset his reputation once, or Vex Strike Force. Now, this is a pretty simple exotic. Thundercrash deals 55% increased damage, and you get damage resistance after it deactivates. Now, the other cool part of this is that if you get a melee kill while you're amplified, it can be a normal melee kill. It does not have to be a powered melee kill. You get super energy back, depending on the strength of the combatant you kill. And there's no cap on this with multiple enemies at once, so AoE is great, but do keep in mind Jolt from any of your melees will not count for this. It's only the melee kills itself. And last but not least, this works with any super ability. If you can get a good source of amplified and you have good melee, then you can use this with any super. You won't get the damage benefit, but you will get the super regen benefit. And say like if you use this on Prismatic with Consecration, any of the supers you can equip on there, you'll get it insanely fast. So keep that in mind. Very simple exotic, but very strong. Last thing I want to mention here is that Thundercrash with Cuirass of the Falling Star is one of the highest DPS supers in the game. That is the damage over the time it takes you out of the fight at minimum. So it's very effective, very recommended, and not all really a downside to being on Arc. So really solid, and that's why we're here. So first, let's talk a little bit about Storm's Keep and Bolt Charge. I have snipped the relevant sections from the Destiny Data Compendium, which will be linked in the description. Definitely check it out. Bolt Charge Once you get 1 stack, will build up as you deal damage with weapons on top of how we're getting it from Storm's Keep. And the rate of generation is when you deal damage instances equal to 15% of the magazine of that weapon, rounded down, plus 2. That's math. The short point to take away from this is anything with a larger magazine that fires faster will get you bolt charge faster. That's it. So focus on your high rate of fire weapons, your rapid fire frames, things like that are good. Outside of that, air denial grenade launchers will build up bolt charge on hits, and they do a lot of hits, especially with a lot of enemies. So if you want to really get bolt charge fast, air denial grenade launchers are great. Once you get a full stack of bolt charge, you will be able to discharge that usually on an ability, but also with Storm's Keep on shooting, and that will deal the same damage as an ignition. And there are also artifact perks to boost that damage even further. Let's talk about that Storm's Keep bolt charge barricade. As soon as you use it, you get 4 bolt charge stacks. And then when you stand behind the barricade, every 0.6 seconds, you get another stack. About 3.6 seconds after placing it, you have a full stack. One thing to note is spark of frequency, which we'll talk about in Fragments, does not increase the number of bolt charge stacks gained from the barricade. It is immune to that effect, but still extremely effective, and this applies to you and your team. Now, the really cool thing is for you is that you can discharge your bolt charge with weapon damage while you're standing behind your barricade. So keep that in mind. It's very helpful, and you can get a lot more bolt discharges off. Moving over to the rest of our aspects and abilities, because we know we're taking Storm's Keep, we want to take Touch of Thunder. This is really just maximizing our damage. So what this is going to do, because we're going to take Pulse Grenade, is it will help you generate Ionic Traces. Now, Pulse Grenade has a flat gain factor of 62.5%, which is pretty much in the middle. But every time it deals damage with a 1 second cooldown, it generates an Ionic Trace. Why do we want the Ionic Traces? It gives us our ability regen back, it helps us get our class ability back, and it will help us get our super back even faster, which just really synergizes with the build. For the rest of our ability suite, we obviously want to take Thundercrash. It's quick damage, it's great, and it's a lot better than Fists of Havoc. For the melee, we take Thunderclap because it has AoE, has a 90% flat gain factor, and is a really solid melee ability. If you're moving around a lot though, you can take the shoulder charge, and that is just fine. And then lastly, we take Rally Barricade because we need it for everything in our class to work. The one other one I would consider is Thruster. If you're being very, very mobile, you'll only get the 4 times bolt charge stacks when you use it, but it can be okay in those instances. But generally the Barricade's going to be much better, and you'll be able to get the cooldown low enough that Thruster doesn't have much benefit. Moving over to Fragments, we have 4 slots because of our selection of aspects. So the ones I'm going to recommend the most is Spark of Resistance, because that has 25% damage resistance when surrounded by enemies. Spark of Ions, which will generate more Ionic Traces when you kill jolted enemies. And then whenever you defeat targets with bolt charge, it'll also make Ionic Traces, which just really keeps that whole loop going. Now next, we are going to take Spark of Discharge. And the main thing here is that every time we acquire an Ionic Trace, we get bolt charge, and that's fantastic. But on top of this, arc weapon kills are going to progress a counter that spawns an Ionic Trace about every 3 common enemy kills. Now lastly, we want to take Spark of Frequency, because while you're amplified, you'll get an extra stack of bolt charge. Now, as I mentioned before, this does not apply to the Barricade, but it does apply to all those Ionic Traces. So every single Ionic Trace is 2 bolt charge stacks, and that's very strong. Now for some alternates to think about, Spark of Beacons is really good if you're using a special arc weapon. It will blind enemies on every single kill, and that's really good. We do have a route to that in the artifact that does not require this. I'd also look at Spark of Magnitude and Spark of Shock, because those will both enhance your grenade. Spark of Shock adds Jolt, and Spark of Magnitude increases the duration. The Jolt's not really necessary because we can also get Jolt from bolt charge discharges, and Magnitude is good. It will deal a little bit more damage, which can be great in DPS situations, but it's a little bit of a trade-off with everything else in the build. But if, say, you're not using an arc weapon, maybe some of these other fragments don't work as well. But overall, lots of great options. Arc fragments are good, but just make sure you're taking ones that benefit your build. Moving over to our mods and armor stats, it's a pretty straightforward setup. You want to build for weapon damage on your main weapons, then build for orbs and heal on orbs. Really important to note that all your weapon-based mods need to match whatever you're using primarily in your heavy and your siphon. So I recommend matching your siphon to whatever your primary ammo weapon is that you're getting most of your kills with, and match your surges to your heavy weapon. Ideally, those are the same element, but they don't necessarily have to be. As for orb generation, we're using heavy-handed, firepower, a siphon mod, and we're using Reaper because we cast our class ability quite a bit. So we have 4 good sources of orbs, and we just want to do that to really maximize our super energy generation. On top of that, we want to take hands-on on the helmet because that will make those melee kills generate even more super than just what Cuirass of the Falling Star gives us. And then we're going to take a heavy ammo finder because this is for boss DPS, and we need to make sure we have maximum heavy ammo. Chest is all about damage resistance. Make sure you take recuperation on the legs for the extra healing. And then class item, pretty flexible, but I like powerful attraction and time dilation, so that our surges last longer and we pull in the orbs every time we cast that barricade. As for the stats, max out resilience, max out discipline, get as much strength as you can and as much recovery as you can manage, and just get intellect to 30 so you don't take a penalties to super. Very briefly, I just want to talk about optimizing bolt charge. I mentioned this earlier, and there's some math involved, and I've done all the math for you. I'll link this in the description, and if you saw my previous video, which was the Rocket Storm build with hazardous propulsion, that one got even more complicated because we were talking about rocket generation and the bolt charge generation. But I've done the magazine calculations in the RPM, so you can figure out how many shots per bolt charge stack you get and time per bolt charge and all that. As I said before, rapid fire weapons are good. Higher magazine and RPM is better. Look for those rapid fire frames. There are some interesting exotics because they fire multiple shots, it can be very strong. Lord of Wolves will generate bolt charge insanely quick. Queenbreaker will also generate pretty quickly because that 3-round burst, even though it's coded as a normal single firing linear fusion rifle. Le Monarch, because it does poison damage over time, will progress your bolt charge insanely fast, and that's why those 3 are so far up. Another one that's kind of interesting is Buried Bloodline, because it's technically a rocket sidearm, but it fires a 2-round burst, so if you can land both those hits, it will build up pretty quickly. On top of that, you can see some of the other good ones here: rapid fire pulses, aerodynamic grenade launchers, rapid fire auto rifles, and Archer's Tempo bows are actually pretty effective at this too. So lots of great options, really cool. Definitely check it out and think about your weapons. Just look at the bottom end of this too for the things that aren't as good, and I didn't even list everything here. So any kind of slow firing weapon archetype, not going to be ideal. Let's talk about our artifact mods because they are very crucial this episode. These are not very fixed, so if there's any here that you don't think you'll get value out of, definitely feel free to skip them. In column 1, it's entirely flexible. Choose whatever you need for the content you're doing. In column 2, Volatile Marksman will give you free Volatile rounds when you get void precision hits or kills, but the big thing here is if you boost this, you can get 10% class ability per volatile explosion. So if you're using a void weapon, that's just going to make sure your barricade's always topped off. There's also unraveling orbs in this column, which will give you unraveling rounds every time you pick up an orb. Just great extra damage on bosses and such, so if you want to, run a strand weapon and definitely use that. In column 3, we have Elemental Siphon. So this will help you make more elemental pickups, which in this case is Ionic Traces. But the real cool thing is if you boost this, you get super energy on Ionic Traces with a short cooldown. So all those Ionic Traces we're generating from our grenades and our kills and our weapon kills is going to get our super back even faster. Also in column 3, we have Photonic Flare. So what this will do is it will create a blinding blast when you kill an enemy who is disrupted with an arc weapon. Now, what is disruption? In this case, your best access to it is going to be Jolt. Jolt is an intrinsic overload counter, which counts as a disruption effect, which will exhaust the enemy, and that lets you get that blind on any arc kills that you've jolted. And because of our bolt charge barricade, we'll be able to get Jolt from that. If you really want to go all in on this, you can make that exhaust from Jolt even stronger with the Disruptor Spike artifact perk. This will take the outgoing damage reduction from enemies from 25% to 35% less damage from the enemy. So that's very helpful on boss encounters. Over in column 4, we have some of our most important ones. First is Flashover. So this will give you amplified every time you max out your bolt charge stacks, which is very helpful. And then it will also make bolt discharge deal plus 150% damage. That is just a massive buff to this, and this is why this build is so strong this episode. You can also get Horde Shuttle, which is free threadlings on unraveled enemies. So if you use a strand weapon, you just tag them with unravel, then go back to using your arc stuff and they're unraveled. You can also boost that to sever with your threadlings, and that is normally a 40% damage reduction on the enemy's damage going out, but with Disruptor Spike that goes up to 52%. So you can really drop the damage your bosses are doing pretty considerably. Column 5, we have 3 really solid options, and you can only pick 2 of these. First up is Limit Break. This will let you do 30% more super damage for 8 seconds when you have a matching buff, which in this case is amplified. The next one is Defibrillating Blast, which will make bolt discharge jolt enemies and heal you, which makes your whole build feel a lot better. And then lastly is Particle Reconstruction. This is a very strong perk this episode. It provides a specialized weaken for linear fusion rifles and fusion rifles, and this this will increase the damage those weapons do by 27.6%. Try to get a teammate to do this for you. You're all going to do so much more damage if you're jolting enemies and healing yourself and all that and staying alive. So if somebody else is running a linear fusion rifle, make sure they have particle reconstruction so that you can take defibrillating blast and limit break. That's one of the only tricky parts of this build. Keep that in mind, but other than that, it's going to be pretty smooth. Last thing to talk about is weapons. So our goals here is bolt charge generation, preferring arc weapons for that one fragment, boss DPS, of course, and barricade generation, which we can get from that boosted volatile marksman artifact perk. My general recommended loadout is a air denial grenade launcher or utility special in the kinetic and darkness slot, and then in the energy slot, use an arc primary to match your surges, and then in your heavy slot, use a burst linear fusion rifle, which is usually Queenbreaker. But this is not what you absolutely have to use. You do have some good options. As mentioned before, prefer rapid fire primaries. Arc weapons will generate extra Ionic Traces every few kills, but void weapons will generate volatile and class ability energy. Briefly talking about boss DPS meta right now, the meta is pretty heavily on linear fusion rifles as long as you get those crits, and that's because of particle reconstruction. And we also want high rate of fire, so we really want those burst linear fusion rifles. There's also some other exotics that work pretty well. For example, Lord of Wolves is extremely strong in some fights, and as mentioned earlier, generates a lot of bolt charge, but it is solar, so that can be a little awkward to fit in. Another really strong one is Microcosm, which will do boosted damage after you use your super. It is kinetic though, so it's kind of hard to match up some of the surges with that. Moving through our weapon options, on Arc we have Queenbreaker as our exotic option. If you don't have that, you can get Storm Chaser from the Duality dungeon. For Void, we have the 2 burst Void linear fusion rifles. We have Mistral Lift from the Dawning, which you may have missed or maybe didn't get a good roll on. And then we also have Doomed Petitioner from Season of the Wish, but you can get that from the exotic mission Star-Crossed. In Solar, as mentioned, Lord of Wolves is very good to consider, so keep that in mind. But we also have Briar's Contempt from Root of Nightmares, and then we also have the really cool new exotic linear fusion, Finality's Augur, which is from the newest dungeon, Sundered Doctrine. If for some reason you don't have that, but you want to use a linear fusion rifle, Sleeper Simulant is a base game exotic and it is very strong. Over on Strand, your best is actually probably going to be Euphony if you have it. That is the Salvation's Edge raid exotic, but a lot of people don't, so don't sweat it. If you don't, there's a great legendary linear fusion rifle from Nightfalls called Scintillation. Rolls with a lot of great perks, and you can use that. On Stasis, we don't have a lot of good options. We have one legendary option called Fire and Forget, and it is pretty strong. It's pretty decent, but it's a little bit dated at this point, so it won't keep up quite as well. I've also showed Winterbite here because there's some fights where Winterbite is the strongest option, like the Lightbearer Titan and Ghost of the Deep. Winterbite with Strand and Banner of War and just a little bit of Bolt Charge Barricade will absolutely demolish him. It's pretty crazy. So just keep that in mind. Try and get that if you haven't got it already, because it's been shown up in the meta a little bit more lately. So just to give you some sample loadouts here on a kinetic focus loadout, and generally these elements are what you should be using for your weapon surges. You can use Praetor's Revenge or another good arc sniper and use that with Microcosm so you can boost those, and then take a void weapon just to get a little bit more barricade energy back. On arc, I like Lost Signal because you can use that air denial to get some good bolt charge generation, and then I'm using a VS Power Electric Repellent, which is an auto rifle, my energy slot, and then Queenbreaker. On void, you have a few options here, but as mentioned before, the Monarch is very good, so I would definitely recommend trying to go for that and then use one of those linear fusion options, and once again Lost Signal. Over on Solar, once again, we don't have a lot of great Solar options for this, so I'd maybe just consider sticking with the Monarch because it's very good. It will keep your barricade generation up, and then just using a Solar Heavy. Now, if you're on Lord of Wolves, I recommend taking a Strand Primary just to kind of balance that out, and then you can use a Void Machine Gun so that you can kind of get that Volatile started. Just shoot a few shots into the boss, it will kick off the Volatile, and then that'll keep everything kind of generating. On Strand, Euphony is probably your best bet. Use a Void Primary. I'm showing Reckless Oracle here, which is a really good legendary option if you don't want to use the Monarch, so keep that in mind. And then just use another linear fusion for your heavy. On Stasis, kind of tricky again, we're going to use the Monarch just because that will help us get our bolt charge fastest, pair it with the air denial grenade launcher, and just a pretty decent stasis weapon. Just some options to consider there. There's a lot of different ways to take this though, but this is just what I've kind of thought would be useful. Lots of options here. Use what works for you. Definitely talk about it in the comments if you have other ideas or things that are working for you. Now, just want to show you a little bit of gameplay. As mentioned earlier, I did run this through Ghost of the Deep on Eternity difficulty, and it was a very smooth run, but I did not hit record, and I don't have tons of time to run dungeons, unfortunately, so I haven't been able to re-record it. So I did do some Court of Blades just to prove out the damage, and I will show you the total damage at the end, and it is pretty funny. This was just with some random teammates, so sorry to them, but I think one of them may have been new. See here, we are just kind of chilling in our barricade repeatedly. We got the great cluster of 3 wizards here, and we're throwing our grenades out, using Queen Breaker, and just absolutely shredding them. At any point, just watch how fast Bolt Charge builds up. If you use this, you've probably seen it. It's very good, but if you stack up that air denial grenade launcher and just keep shooting on top of it, it will happen constantly. And that's really good because, once again, Bolt Charge is how we're doing most of our healing, so we want to keep that rolling. Cleared that phase. Alright, we are going into the last boss room now. We only have about a minute left, so probably only going to get 1 or 2 bosses out of this, but that is okay. Going in right for a Thundercrash, it does not deal a lot of damage because the boss is shielded. Some of these bosses have annoying mechanics, but that is okay. We'll have that back very soon. So we put up our barricade, and we've whittled down some of the enemies. Some enemies are just running up to us. The barricade actually does a really good job of taking damage, so keep that in mind. It has a natural aggro to it that they added just this episode, and that is very helpful. A fun thing to note on bolt discharging is that one of the easiest ways to discharge it is just do a standard melee, and that will cause lightning to rain down and take out enemies, so that can be very helpful. We've almost got this ogre worn down, and you can just see shots rolling through. As always with linear fusion rifles, try and get your crits, but with bolt charge, just getting hits can help a lot. You can see we've run out of time on this, so we're in the final round. I'm going to put down our barricade as always, and then we got the triple wizards again, and we Thundercrash almost all of them in one hit. It's very, very effective. And that's pretty much it for the run. So, just to show you the final damage numbers on this, and once again, this is just a random match-made run. One of my teammates hit 880,000 for boss damage. Another teammate hit 4.9 million, and I hit 8.6 million. Just constantly churning out damage and taking out as much as I can. I also got the most kills, least deaths, all that, and I'm not that good. Don't let me make this a brag. It's just the build is very effective. It does really great damage, and that's why I'm bringing it to you. Just briefly summarizing the gameplay loop. Place your barricade somewhere with line of sight to enemies, shoot them to summon lightning down from the sky. For bosses, make sure you get amplified before using your super. 30% damage boost. You can do this by hitting 10 times bolt charge with flashover artifact perk, and then just place your barricade on cooldown during bosses. Top of that, throw grenades whenever you can, just get those Ionic Traces, and that's pretty much it. Very simple build, but very effective, which is one of my favorite kinds of builds because it's easy for everybody to get a grasp on, and you don't need a lot of learning curve with it. As I wrap up, I'm just going to send on the build review. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks for all the support on the channel. I've been noticing the subscribers have been coming in pretty regularly, especially with some of these really solid builds for Rite of the 9. I'm glad y'all are enjoying it. We're supposed to finally be getting previews very shortly for Edge of Fate, and I'm so excited just to see some new stuff. This episode's been fun, but I'm a little bit tired of this meta already, so it'll be cool to see new things coming in. I will be talking about anything that is interesting and in depth, and also probably be talking about some prep work you should do as we start approaching Edge of Fate. With that, thank you again for all the support on the channel. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you in the next one.